I can't see it on. I don't have enough service to even pick it up.
No, mine isn't working now.
Maybe it doesn't go There's still someone watching.
Keep track of the numbers now.
Good evening, everyone. If you would, please find your seats. We'll get started. Thank you all for coming tonight. I'm Bobby Smathers, President and CEO of the Hocking Chamber of Commerce, and I will be the host for this evening. Assisting me tonight, we have Kelly Helber from Future Plans, as well as some outstanding cadets from the JROTC helping us, so thank you all. And then at this time, if you'll please silence your cell phones, set them to vibrate, and rise and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You can be seated. So before we get officially started, I just want to go over the ground rules again. Everyone should have been provided a copy. If you haven't, please let us know. You will have the opportunity to ask questions, and we'll provide instruction when it gets to that time. Your question should be directed to all candidates and not to anyone individually. Please keep your question brief, clear, and respectful. Personal attacks, inappropriate language, or arguments will not be permitted. Due to time constraints, not everyone may have the chance to ask a question, but there isn't a lot of us tonight, so we might all get there. We appreciate your understanding. Any disruptive behavior will not be tolerated, and you will be removed from the event. So, watching you, Debt Token. It's a light-hearted event. Let's keep it that way. So all candidates running for county commissioner were invited to participate tonight, and we're out in the entryway for you to meet and greet. Thank you to the candidates for coming tonight. I would like to mention that Mr. Mike Schrader is abstaining from this portion of tonight's event to not take away from the Republican primary, but he is still obviously running for county commissioner as a Democrat primary. This evening provides an opportunity for the voters to become more familiar with each candidate and their positions on important local issues. So again, please be respectful of the candidates and everyone else It's also being live streamed, so don't say any bad words. At this time, I will let the candidates each have 3 minutes to introduce themselves. Please hold any applause until everyone has had a chance to speak. So, Mr. Funfelder, you can go first. Kelly Helber is keeping time, so.
Okay. My name is John Frankfurter. I have I've lived here in Logan since the 79-80 school year. When my dad got the job here. My dad is the mayor here, for any that are wondering. I currently lead a men's group in town out of Boat Ministries. I've also been part of the founding of a nonprofit organization that I've been president of Southeastern Ohio Fishers of Men. So we work with a lot of kinship. One of the things that goes on in Hocking County is there is a very large amount of kids who aren't living with their parents. They're living with grandparents, or they're living with aunt and uncle. And whenever they do that transition, there's a big change there. So we help raise money. We're helping them. And then any of the rest of the struggle that he goes through. I've been married for 25 years. I have a daughter. I also have a son who has passed from drug overdose. That's one of the things that unfortunately has not come up in any of the questions or any of the things that's talked about when it comes to Hocking County is the substance abuse problem that we have and what we're going to do to try to help that. I'm not saying the commissioners can do that, but it's just a conversation that's not, there are a lot of people that are in this community that are struggling with that and they need help. If we come together as a community to help them, I think that would be the best. So that's a general kind of overview of me. I ran because I have a concern about this county, and I want to help out wherever I can. And I've always said that if you are somebody who wants to complain, you also need to be able to be that person who will put your hat in the ring. So I finally got to that point where I put my hat in the ring. I didn't do this because anything against him or anything against Tony or anybody else. I felt that this was the right step for me to go, and that's it. I got my 1 minute, so that's it. Thanks.
Kelly, do I get his extra 1 minute? Michael Linton, I've been a commissioner, was appointed 2 years ago, had to run in the interim in the general election a year and a half ago. I've lived in Hocking County for 38 years, been married the same 38 years to my wife Annette. We have 7 children. What we do for fun is we operate a Christian camp on our property over by Laurelville. For income, we are partners in a business called Accurate Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing, which if you read the article from Mrs. Tobin, I intend to sell my interest in that business in June so that I can focus more full-time on the opportunities here in Hocking County. I also want to say, I just want to, this is not introduction part, but I think it's important to clarify a couple of things, and maybe this will come up later, but I'll sacrifice my introduction time. There's not a lot exciting about me, other than Kelly Helber and I wrestled together in college. So, yes. And we were talking before we started, I don't think any of us would qualify as politicians. That's not what we're here for. And the hardest thing for us to do, I would say all 3 of us, is tell us how wonderful we are. Because I don't know about them, and I don't think I'm very wonderful. So, but I do want to, land bank, we'll look for your time here, but I just want to clarify 2 things. The land bank, there's been a lot of noise about why and how and who benefits. Who benefits from the land bank is our residents of the county, because we'll be able to collect some of those unpaid taxes, delinquent taxes, and or get rid of blighted properties. No one in and around county government will benefit from the land bank. I just think that's important to get that out there. The purpose of standing up the land bank was not to benefit anybody as an elected official. It was to create opportunities for affordable housing in our community. And the second is the Port Authority. First of all, you don't have to have a port to have a Port Authority, but a lot of people say that, where's our port on Lake Logan? You don't have to have a port. The Port Authority, the intent of the Port Authority is to get federal and state dollars to bring to the county to grow economic development. And there's some incentives that the Port Authority can do that other entities cannot do. we have the ability, and the focus clearly in our county has to be economic, one of the focuses, in addition to other things you mentioned, has to be economic development. We need more livable wage jobs, and that's the reason we want to stand up for Port Authority and on the bank.
My name is Tony Wheeler. I grew up here in Hocking County, actually out near the caves. So tourism, which is a hot button issue for a lot of people here, I dealt with it all my life. In fact, we used to joke that the people that came in the fall to look at leaves would probably buy a Wonder Bread sack full of them from you because they thought it was so awesome to look at the leaves. My background is as a paramedic. I worked for the county for a little over 33 years. I retired in January of 2023, and I'm not going to be retired. I'm probably going to die at work somewhere. I immediately took a commission working for the Office of the Coroner as an investigator, and I've done that in the 3+ years since I've been retired. My motivation for running, I feel like local politicians get a bad rap, and I think not necessarily because of the things that they do or don't do, but the lack of transparency and the lack of educating the public on what their plans are and how they're going about it. And I would like to see greater transparency. As far as the land bank and the Port Authority, I, like many, was ignorant about it. I asked a lot of questions and did a lot of research, some of which alleviated my concerns and some of which caused concern. So I believe that they're probably both good for economic development, but they are going to require a lot of oversight and a lot of transparency and some bylaws dictating who and how property can be purchased. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonah. So we have at the beginning here some pre-submitted questions. If you saw in the newspaper and on Facebook, residents were able to submit their questions ahead of time. These questions have been provided to the candidates already, but you will have 2 minutes each to answer the question. Everyone will be asked the same question tonight, and we'll continue to go alphabetically by last name. So Mr. Grunfelder, you'll start, and then we'll go to Mr. Willer, or Mr. Lynn, and then Mr. Willer. First question tonight is, what is your stance on zoning in the county?
So I think the better question with that is, if you don't have zoning, then how are you going to stop certain things? Now, I understand for many years, especially the county has been kind of like the Wild West. And I understand you don't want people to tell you what to do with your property. But I guess the question I would have is, okay, but what if someone moves in beside you? You don't like what they're doing. They're going to have the same freedoms that you have to do whatever they want. So there has to be some type of agreement in between there to stop that. And there has to be people that come to the table that say, okay, I'm not going to get everything I want. You're not going to get everything you want, but let's have the discussion and find out what's going to be best for what's going to be in the future, what's going on right now. So, to not be very specific and just say zoning in general, I guess that would be kind of my general question on zoning. Again, you pointed on overreach and oversight. Like, I understand where people are coming from who don't want it. I do. But I also understand where people are coming from who do want it, because there are some things you're going to have to be able to rein in and have control over. And if you don't have zoning laws, then if somebody wants to open up a nudist camp out there, nobody's going to stop it. Somebody wants to open up put a junkyard, but like that, at some point in time, there's got to be something that's going to regulate them. And I know this is going to be directed probably toward the Airbnbs, is probably what a lot of people are thinking. I think that there has to be the conversation, there has to be something about that.
ahead. Okay, so, I guess my stance on zoning isn't what is important, it's what the citizens of Hocking County think is important. And the zoning commission performed numerous surveys and held numerous public meetings. And at the end of every one of those public meetings, the questions were asked: do you want zoning? Do you want regulations? Do you want other opportunities to regulate certain things? There were several questions that were asked, and I attended all but 2 of those meetings. And in none of those meetings did anyone say they want zoning. And what I know about zoning is I want it for my neighbor, but I don't want it for me. That's how most people think about zoning is I don't want my neighbor to do something I don't want them to do, but I still want the flexibility to do what I want to do. And somebody smarter than me is going to figure out the answer to that. But I do know that the public voted, for those who attended the meetings and the surveys and at the fair a year, 2 years ago, that no one said they wanted zoning. So I think the county has voted and said we really don't want zoning. Now, having said that, I think we can accomplish some of the objectives that people who say they want zoning can do through some regulations. And again, you go back to the short-term rental regulations, there's noise ordinances, there's things that are being discussed that I think will address some of the concerns that people have who are supporting zoning. But as an elected official, I feel like we need to listen to the voters. The voters said we don't want zoning. At least they did in the polls for the surveys that were held.
My personal feelings on zoning, I'm against it. I don't feel like you should be restricted to use of your property. However, I understand that people are going to have problems with their neighbor. And I understand that in our community, because we do have a large number of short-term rentals, that those people are disturbing their neighbors to some degree. I believe that some of it could fall back on the owners of the properties. They can establish rules for use while they're there. I travel, I rent houses. There's always a list of things that you can or cannot do. Turn the radio off at 10 o'clock or whatever. Put some of that responsibility back on those businesses so that they have rules for staying in their establishment, and those rules can have penalties. As far as zoning in and of itself, in the perfect world, if we weren't a tourist community, it's a slippery slope in my opinion, because once you get one thing, then you get the next thing, then the next thing. And I've never heard of any place that had zoning that went backwards. It always advances. And I'm not about taking away people's life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. So.
Thank you. The next question that was submitted: what is your plan to lower taxes?
I'm going to lower all your property values. That way your tax comes down. So again, very kind of loaded question. So I know we had a reappraisal in 22, and I believe we're going through another one right now in 25 for the county. So as to what the commissioners can do to actually hold down the value of your property going up, I mean, I don't know. One thing I found out during this venture is I think the public feels that the commissioners have more kind of power than what they have or what they do. I know that the commissioners rolled back. They went from a 3.5 mil and took it back to 2.7. So I don't know. So that would have lowered your taxes. I don't know past there what you could specifically do. When you remove tax, it's paying for something. So you can go to the property taxes. So, whether it's, infrastructure things or whether it's EMS, things like that. So if we're going to remove it, then I guess my next question is, what are you going to do to replace that? Because that stuff you still need to be paid for. To say specific how that can be, other than what the commissioners have already done, I don't have specific knowledge of what you can do past that. Why you came back to 2.7, I'm sure there was a reason for it. I haven't asked them specifically, but they did make an effort to try to help to roll back a little bit there. But state constitution says 10 is the lowest for property and 20 for school. So they're also going to be limited at that point. So I guess the only other thing you could do is if you're going to try to eliminate some things, we're going to have to get some more money from tourists that come here. I know that's, kind of a hot button thing. I know any place that I go, there's a tourist fee. I'm not sure why we don't have that here. I'm not sure why so many people push back on it.
Thank you. I'm going to run quickly because I want to share some things that have happened. You're right, Sean. There's not a lot the commissioners can do. We don't have any control over other than rolling back inside millage, which we did do. In addition, DD rolled back their inside millage as well, and several townships rolled back their inside millage in 2025, which impacts 2026 taxes when they're paid. So, I think the efforts there to try to reduce the taxes to the ability that we have. But the reality is the taxes are set by the state legislature going through the state auditor. The state auditor is one that sets the rates, and they're based on property values. We know that property values have increased significantly in Hocking County, and yes, whether we like it or not, a lot of that's due to short-term rentals. And I'm not beating on short-term rentals, and we'll talk about that later, but part of our increase is due to that. But there are 5 bills that have been passed in the last 6 months by the legislature and either signed by the governor or overridden by the legislature after the governor vetoed. I just want to hit them real quickly, and you can research them. But House Bill 124, it basically allows the county auditor to determine what properties should be included in the triennial valuation period. So that's never happened. They've always taken the entire pool. What that may happen for us is we can take short-term rentals out of that pool and we'll adjust the increases into the future. That's number one. Number two is House Bill 129. I'm looking for the timer. It addresses the 20 mil floor that Sean referred to, and that's basically inside millage that allows people to pass through taxes that we don't vote on. And so this will allow the county auditor and county auditor to address what that inside millage can be. So it puts controls on those levies that don't get voted on, but yet increase our taxes. The most important one is House Bill 186, particularly for us because it limits the inside millage increase to the rate of inflation versus the cost of properties. So what's that mean? More to come.
I don't think most people realize that the state mandates every 3 years that a tax assessment is made on your property. It's easy to blame the guy you know downtown, but that's a state issue. They're going to reassess your property, and because of the amount of tourism and the amount of investment in our county, it has driven property values up. So they're going to base that on sales of real estate. Well, real estate selling high, then guess what? Your property value is going to be assessed high. As far as changing that, I would love to see less property tax. We need an alternative method of income in order to fund that. As much as I hate taxes, they're a necessary evil. We have to have infrastructure. We have to have fire, EMS, police. We have to have a way to fund those things. Currently, the property taxes is the way we're doing the majority of it in our county.
Thank you. So the next question, with short-term rentals continuing to grow and proposals for zoning and regulations being implemented, how would you balance protecting property rights and tourism revenue while also addressing concerns about housing affordability, emergency services, and neighborhood impact?
Me personally, I don't. One of the reasons I decided to run this is I've always been told somewhere between 5 to 8 million people come to the county a year. And it doesn't make any sense to me why we're still as poor of a county as we are. It just doesn't make any kind of sense. So what are we doing or not doing to be able to capture funding from these people that come in. Again, I go on vacation all the time, and there's plenty of places that you go that you are charged a, visitor fee or vacation fee, whatever you want to call it. So I think in that area is where you could start to get funding for EMS and police. So when you go back to the regulations instead of zoning, that's great that you have all the regulations, so you have to turn the radio off, but who's going to go enforce that at midnight in the middle of the county? Well, it's gonna have to be the sheriff's department, but the sheriff's department's gonna need more funding. So where are we gonna get the more funding to be able to do that? So I mean, it just starts kind of a snowball effect going, of trying to figure out. So I still trying to get my head around how can we have this many people come to this county? We have a beautiful county that we live in. God has blessed us with where we are living, and we get to share that with people. But why do we continue to have to carry the burden for that? It doesn't make any sense. But so many people that I've talked to push back because they're afraid if we charge an extra $15 or $20, whatever it is, people are all of a sudden going to stop coming here. They won't. They haven't stopped going to Gatlinburg. They haven't stopped going to Florida. They haven't stopped going to South Carolina. It's not going to stop people from coming here. I don't think it will upset them. So,
Let me know if you need me to repeat the question, by the way.
No, good with it, thanks, though, because you carve in my time if you ask the question. This is a difficult situation. I've been dealing with this for, I think, 2 years of being a commissioner. Let me say that tourism is our biggest industry, so we do not want to squelch what has worked for the county. Having said that, I think there's still a necessity to be able to provide an opportunity for people who want to live peaceable lives on the property they live in. So somehow there's a balance there. What I think we need to do is figure out a way, and I agree with you, Sean, every place that we visit, there are all kinds of taxes go on. I don't think we should necessarily tax the short-term rental owner. I think the people who come and spend their money, we need to find ways for them to spend their money in our county. And more than just renting a very nice property out in the hills, but we have to provide incentive for them to come into Laurelville, to come into Logan, to come into Murray City and spend their money so that we can benefit from that. And that's the way that we can pay for emergency services like fire and EMS and the sheriff's office. But to date, most people do not come downtown because we haven't provided a reason for them to come downtown. Part of the economic development committee that we formed is to focus on redeveloping, enhancing the opportunities for residents and visitors to come downtown and spend money. And when they spend money, the county benefits from it.
30 seconds.
Hand signal there. In addition to that, we need to work with them, and I know the people here from HSLOA, we need to work collaboratively so that people who live here can coexist with people who are visiting here. And that can happen. Part of that is putting expectations on visitors by the owners to say, you're expected to operate in a certain fashion.
Kind of to readdress what Sean said, I travel to Destin every summer with your friends. We rent a house. There's a list of, you don't look at that when you're looking at, you ask, how much is it going to cost for this week for this house? Because I'm on vacation. But when you look at the itemized bill, there's a breakdown. There'll be like a $15 charge for emergency services. And there's multiple on them. As the vacationer, you're not looking at that for a reason to not come. $15 doesn't make it cost prohibitive for you. But when you consider 700,000 rentals annually, that $15 is a lot of money when you multiply it by 750,000 visitors. And that would go a long way in funding our emergency services as well as other things. I mean, the big push right now with property taxes, everybody wants to get rid of it. Well, I don't like paying property taxes either, but I'm also aware that it funds a lot of things, and a lot of those things I voted for, they were levies. And I think if the public supported it, then we should be doing it. However, I think that there's a lot of top heaviness in the school district, which is the largest part of our taxes, property taxes. I'm not sure how to address that, how to correct that. But there's more to it than just, we're the small part of property taxes, the county is. Where am I at? So we need to find alternative methods for funding these things. I mean, I think the state is benefiting the most from the Hocking Hills. It's a beautiful area. We benefit from it because we live here. Visitors come here because it's a beautiful place to be, but the state's reaping the majority of the rewards. That money's not staying in our county. It's leaving.
Thank you. That kind of leads to our next question. Tourism is a major economic driver here, but it also creates a strain on infrastructure, housing, and local services. What is your long-term vision for diversifying the county's economy while still supporting a strong tourism industry?
I think it's just going to be a rebuttal of what we just said. I completely agree with Mr. Linden. Look, we need something downtown for people to come down. I know they always talk about it. You know, we need to try to get people to turn left when they come off of 33. You know, on 664, everyone turns right, goes out in the caves. We'll get them to Walmart, maybe Kroger, to get them downtown. I travel with my job. I'm a cabinet salesman, and I get to go to a lot of these different towns. So if you go to like Troy or Piqua or some of these completely full downtowns, they got all kind of businesses there. So what are we doing as a community to encourage small businesses to open up? It's a huge risk for that. But what are we doing to help those entrepreneurs out? But again, I'm going to stay on the fact that there's so many people that are coming into this town. I don't know why, or this county. I don't know why we can't start doing what so many other vacation destinations do when they charge people an additional fee. I don't think I'm the same as Tony. You know, we go to Disney every year. The amount of taxes and fees that are put on that, like, we don't even look at it. What's the total bill going to be because we're going to go on vacation? I think the same thing would be here. So many people come here, and it's continued to grow and grow and grow. So I think that's for me, that would be our long term, is we need to figure out a way to get more money from them. We need to figure out a way to revitalize downtown, to the downtown that most of us grew up in, where it was completely full.
Gonna jump on. I think we need to continue to look for ways to, under the Ohio Revised Code, to look for ways to add additional taxes or fees to people who visit. And sometimes I came in with lots of grandiose ideas of why aren't they paying their fair share? And there's a lot of roadblocks in the Ohio Revised Code, and we certainly need to continue to look at that. Regarding economic diversity, I mean, I mentioned before, that's the reason that we have focused on standing up a port authority and the land bank, because those two fit hand in glove in terms of growing our economy. As much as we appreciate what the short-term rentals bring to our county, we need more livable wage jobs in our county. The majority of the people in our county drive out every day to work. That's not right. We need to provide opportunities. We have two soon-to-be empty buildings right on Front Street that we need to make sure they get inhabited by folks that will employ large numbers of people. Stuart Glass is a win for the county. We need to celebrate that. We need to work with them to continue to grow. They're going to add 100 people in phase 1, 100 people in phase 2, and if successful, 500 people in phase 3. There'll be suppliers to them and customers to them that we hope we can attract to our market. In addition, we just need to find other industries that we can provide economic incentives for them to relocate to Hocking County. And that's the reason we want to stand up a port authority. I know there's lots of noise about a port authority, who benefits from it, but I can tell you who benefits from it is the citizens of Hocking County. If we can get large businesses to come with livable wage jobs, we all win.
I agree that Stuart Glass is definitely going to bring a lot to the county. Hopefully they are going to bring their suppliers here, and they're going to have to take those buildings that are soon to be vacant and provide some more jobs. I know growing up here downtown, you did all your business downtown. I mean, we went to school clothes shopping, we did everything downtown. And then, you know, the biggest outgrowth was when they built the shopping center out where Tractor Supply is now. There was Murphy's Mart and Kroger, and And that was out of town shopping, and people stayed local and they shopped local. And there were things to do. I think the focus should be on working on providing more things for our young people to get into, to keep them out of trouble as well. I don't think that there's a lot going on in our community other than sports. For, kids are out of school for summer, they need to have places that they can go and things that they can do to occupy their time so that they're not getting in trouble. A little bit off subject.
Thank you. Next question was, if you're elected, what does success look like for Hocking County? What is your vision? How will residents feel that impact in their day-to-day lives?
I would love to see downtown rebuilt back. There's a lot of empty buildings down there. That being said, and I know I touched on it before, there's a huge risk for an entrepreneur to start something. It is. So we need to figure out a way that we can help them with that. It sounds like the Port Authority, I don't have huge knowledge on that, but it sounds like that's what one of the things they can do. Manufacturing jobs. I mean, I grew up when all these places were full. It'd be great to bring those back. I don't know if that's possible in the capacity that it was before, but there has to be some way that we can come together and try to figure out ways to grow this community. There's so many people that live or that leave this community to go work someplace else. I think the last time I saw the median income for Hocking County was like $32,500. Like, that's low. There has to be a way that we can come together and figure out how to improve that. But it's only going to happen if we come together as a community. Like, just to think that 3 people on a board is going to be the answer, or the city council is going to be like, it needs to be the collection of all of us. Like, what are we going to do to come together to try to fix this? Like, it's not just the elected officials, in my opinion, who can fix a community. It takes the rest of us to do it. So the rest of you, that's my question to you. Like, are you also committed to try that too? Like, what's your vision for Logan? And not just what our vision is for Logan or Hocking County. What is yours? Like, what are we going to do together to get that back to where it was? So that's mine. Is that my time? Yep.
I'm just going to read some because I wrote down, and number one for me would be enhanced trust in public officials. This is no fun. I can tell you, I'm not on Facebook. I will never be on Facebook. But just some of the stuff I hear that people throw out, it sickens me to hear the comments that people make. So one of my objectives would be, if I'm reelected, that at the end of 4 years, people say, wow, we can trust that guy. He's really acting on behalf of the county. That's not just my objective, but I would say a lot of elected officials would fall into that. Number 2, provide opportunities to improve services that the county provides to our citizens at a reduced cost. And yes, I think that's possible. A thing called zero-based budgeting is something that I've experienced my whole career in the private sector. Zero-based budgeting is a way to think about what do we really need to operate instead of what have we always had to operate on. Number 3, and most importantly, is economic vitality. At the end of 4 years, I'd love to see another shop with 200 people, another shop with 300 people. Focus hard on land bank and Port Authority to bring real jobs, livable wage jobs to the county. Number 4, vibrant downtowns, not just in Logan, but Laurelville, Murray City. I think there's a ton of opportunity to enhance what happens downtown. Number 5, more bike paths. Never thought I'd say that, but more bike paths because it helps people get around the community safely. Number 6, less delinquent property taxes. We start off at 4.2 million 2 years ago. We're down to 2.8 million delinquent property taxes. Love to see that number continue to climb, along with less blighted properties around, not just in the city, but around the county. More affordable housing. So there's more places for people who want to move here or stay here and they can afford to live in housing. And lastly, more reasons for people to stay in our county because of what we bring as the county.
To touch on what Sean started, I've done a lot of homework and a lot of research in the last couple of months because admittedly, I'm ignorant about a lot of things. You have a perception of what it is, and then you do your homework and you realize that you weren't even close. 45% of the population leaves this county every day to go out of town to work, which is nearly half of our working population. I would love to see people be able to stay here and drive 5 minutes to work versus 55 minutes or an hour, 5 minutes. Growing up, like Sean said, we had all these factors. We had the 2 Goodyears, and we had the Smead, and Carbo, Mount Best. I mean, everybody got a factory job after school, I used to get a hard time from my friends, they were all, most of them Goodyear and Smead, and they were driving new trucks, and, I'm working for the county, I'm making peanuts, The last slap was on me because I finished an entire career while they all got laid off and had to figure out what they were going to do. But good jobs. Keeping people here. That's got to be a high priority. I don't have an exact answer for how we're going to do it, but it needs to be done. I wondered, they built the industrial park out on Chieftain Drive some years ago, and there's, in my mind, industrial means factories, manufacturing. And as far as I know, the only people out there manufacturing is Jerry Bellmer, I think, and it's like small level manufacturing. They're not making car parts or stuff like that. But we need those kind of jobs here. And I've heard stories about companies that were interested in it. I'm not involved in the CIC or wasn't involved with the chamber. I don't know why those people changed their minds and went on their way, and those kind of things are curious to me.
So that was the last pre-submitted question. If each candidate is okay with it, since we're ahead of schedule, I'd like to give you each another 3 minutes to finish up some statements that you had. All three okay?
Yeah.
All right. Timekeeper, you good? All right. Mr. Crumpler, you can get started.
So to kind of build off Tony, there's a huge amount that leaves the county for work. So love to be able to see that change. But how to actually do that and what we can attract in, I think is going to be multiple kind of conversations with multiple people to see what we can do. I know just from conversations with my dad that it's been an uphill battle for them to try to get things. They've had a couple people on the hook and end up losing them because someplace else basically gave them a better deal on whatever it was. If it was taxes or whatever it ended up being, they ended up getting a better deal to go someplace else. So we lost them. So I don't know. You see the potential that's around. You see what we have to offer here, and unfortunately, the biggest industry is Airbnbs. I have family members who have them, and it's retirement for them, and it's working out great for them. I have people who I know that live close to them, and they hate it. I know people who hate seeing the tourists come in town. There has to be a happy medium somewhere with it. We need to get something more downtown. I know I'm just kind of going over the same things, but this is kind of where we're at. This is what we need to get fixed in our county if we want to fix it. Yeah, I don't have much more than what we've already talked about. I did find one interesting thing. We were talking about property values. So in Ohio, property values over the past 35 years, and I picked 35 years because that's when I graduated high school, and I remember how it was around Logan. In Ohio, it's gone up 245% in Ohio, average property taxes for property values. For the entire United States, it's about 310 to 325. For Hocking County, it's 350 to 400. So 400%. Think about that. Is there some magical pill that we could do up here that's going to stop that? No. But it's a unique thing for Hocking County that we need to kind of get addressed, and how we can address that. Again, I believe it's going to be a group of people come together to try to figure out what's going to be best for the county for that, because it is making it for, like my daughter, it's going to be hard to buy a house here, you know, because I bought a house 11 years ago. That's all you guys get to know, 11 years ago.
I want to finish on House Bill 186 because it's significant. And I say this because we want to thank our state legislators, both our senator and our congressman, our representative, who basically undertook these bills. And House Bill 186, to Sean's point, the property values escalated significantly. House Bill 186 specifically limits inside millage increase to the rate of inflation versus the cost of properties. That's significant. That won't help where we already pay, but going forward, instead of the curve looking like this, if property values continue to increase, and I think they will, versus it'll go like this based on no more than rate of inflation. That's a huge help. Doesn't help us in the back, but if you should get a refund on your second half taxes if you already paid them, or you'll be paying the last second half. I also want to speak to Economic Development Committee, which we stood up a couple of months ago. The purpose of that committee is to focus holistically on what we can do to drive business to Hocking County. There's several subcommittees. One of those subcommittees is what can we do to focus on downtown development, some of the hurdles, some of the costs to build downtown. That's the focus. One of those is, to your point, Tony, is how can we communicate what we're trying to accomplish to everyone, so everyone's aware. And having said that, we do coffee with the commissioners once a month. If it needs to be more, we'll be happy to do that because we want to hear from people. Another committee is how can we bring new business of the Economic Development Committee? How can we bring new business? Another subcommittee is how can we retain and expand existing companies? So we're full go on taking advantage of. And another thing that we don't take enough advantage of historically is there's a lot of grants out there. Sean is our grants administrator for the county. He's done a great job identifying additional grants that we can tap into to bring funds for economic development and or for repairing streets and or for EMS and or we've not done enough, we've not made enough effort to try to bring more money in the county. And that's why we hired Sean. He's doing a great job at that. So all those things together, our focus is how can we provide opportunities for people to live, enjoy, and work in Hocking County.
To touch back on real estate, we live in a beautiful, desirable location, and people want to be here. And people that can afford to are going to invest in this area because it's exploded. COVID blew us up. I mean, tourism has been here my entire life. But in the last 4 or 5 years, it's exploded because COVID kept people inside, and so we're gonna let you go outside. And so a lot of people started visiting parks, and ours is beautiful. Investors come into our county with deep pockets. They can spend whatever they want on it. If it's desirable to them and they think they can make money on it, that they're gonna spend their money on that investment. And that shoots your property value up, because when they assess your property, they're looking at what things are selling for around you. That's all well and good if you bought your property with the desire to use it as an investment and sell it and cash in and move on. But if you plan to live and die there, like most of us, it's a huge tax burden. What else? I want to get here. I do think we do need to get downtown revitalized. I mean, bring them into the city. I mean, right now, Walmart's property in Hocking County probably more than any other business in town. I don't know about you guys, but I don't even go to Walmart on Friday, Saturday, and Sundays, and summer months particularly. just too many people out there.
Okay, thank you. So I think we can go ahead and get started on some audience questions. My volunteers will go to each side of the room. If you'd like to ask a question, please raise your hand and we will call on people individually. You'll come up to the front, to the microphone here and ask your question. And again, each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond. Who would like to go first? Reminder of the rules, please keep it professional.
Okay. I'm Dennis Thrush, lived here most of my life. My question is about the Port Authority and the zoning. We're gonna raise our taxes to pay for the people who are going to be doing this, and who is going to be in charge and regulated so they don't go power crazy like so many have in this county. What I'm saying is the top 4% of the big names in Hocking County who run the place, I want to know who's going to be in charge of them and what restrictions do they have so they just don't say, hey, I don't like the shrubs, let's change that. That's my question right now.
Just to clarify, so your question is who is responsible for overseeing the Port Authority and the regulations, and then who is responsible for making sure that those people are following the guidelines as well?
What is going to be the qualifications to have this, but yeah, that's it,
Okay. I just want to make sure we were
you
finished. All right, Ms. Rumpelter, you can respond now.
So I'm gonna have to defer to Mr. Linton on the Port Authority.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't know a lot about that, so I'll be upfront on that. As for zoning, if that's what would end up being voted in, yes, it could be a slippery slope. But I guess that's the other part of my question would be, if you don't end up going that way, and what you end up doing is going with different regulations. So again, like we said before, somebody is having an out of control party and a normal resident wants that to be under control, then who's going to enforce that? So we can have all the regulations that we want, but if we don't have anybody to enforce it, then what's the purpose for it? That would be the one thing where you go back to go, but a zoning's not, I don't know if a zoning would take care of that unless you would end up having, a noise ordinance type thing, but there's noise ordinance in the city, and there's loud stuff in the city all the time. But I understand the police have other things they need to do. So there's a whole ball. I don't think it's just a simple answer of do this and it'll fix everything. Who's going to be in charge to make sure they don't run out of control? It's who you're going to vote in. And it's who you're going to vote in. I mean, it's the same way with the city, like who you vote in as a city council, who you vote in on this board, or anyone that, that's why I think the public needs to be as educated on each one of the candidates. I mean, really, there should be a room full of people here, because there's going to be more than that's going to vote, to find out. I mean, one of the first things I did when I first started was, I'll sit down and have a conversation with anybody. Not one person has contacted me. Not one person. So, yeah, I mean, you're going to have to watch, but that's from local all the way up to the federal level as to you need to get the right people voted in, because if not, yeah. I mean, so, yeah, it's a tough, I can see it from each side, but there has to be.
I appreciate you giving it to me, because I actually have a question, and this question that you can maybe answer because you're involved in it. My concern is you're going to have to create jobs with this. There's more government jobs. How are we going to pay these people to enforce these new rules and regulations? Because that's just puts a greater financial burden on the county because you created another employee. Have you thought about that?
Yeah, good question. And that question, and in terms of the land bank, the Port Authority are appointed positions. So they're appointed by the commissioners, and the terms can be set by the commissioners. But I also want to say they're governed by the Ohio Revised Code. The Port Authority can only do what the Ohio Revised Code allows them to do. And there's been some, there's been some bad characters out there in every part of government, right? I don't think we all may disagree with that. There can certainly be that in a Port Authority. There's certainly a land bank. But the intent would be to appoint the right people who can drive economic development. And in terms of cost, the Port Authority should generate income. It shouldn't cost income. It shouldn't cost. There should be minimal cost. Now, there may be some startup costs to the county, but it'll be a minimal cost to the county. The Port Authority should be self-sustaining because their objective is they get part of the income when companies come. That's part of their incentive is to gain some benefit from the companies who come here. So there should not be a cost to the county. In terms of, you had one other question, remind me. Cost.
Qualifications of someone to do it.
Oversight. Oversight.
Yeah.
Oversight. Yeah, oversight, high revised code. It's pretty effective oversight. They can only do what they're allowed to do based on the high revised code. The commissioners will continue to have oversight over what happens with the Port Authority as they will with the land bank along with the treasurer and other elected officials. So there is oversight. And let me just say in terms of, you mentioned there are four families of small group of people.
4% of Hocking County is basically run by certain families. They have big political input on what's going on in our county.
Well, I think you can say all three of us up here are in that 4%.
Can I follow-
Front fellow, maybe, I don't know.
Can I follow up with that? Kind of what he's meaning, I think, is meaning that our treasurer, our Hocking County treasurer, is brothers with one of our commissioners, and you said those two communicate with some of this stuff? Is there any conflict of interest
They do
there?
not serve on any of the same boards by design. Neither of those two, Drew or Blaine, do not serve on the same boards. So that's by design. And let me just go to the other point, Tony, about transparency. We want people to know what we're doing. I can tell you, I personally say, I have nothing to hide. I have nothing to hide. You can ask me anytime, you can check records, public records. We have nothing to hide. We truly, and I say that's probably all three of us, we want to benefit. This isn't self-interest. We want the county to benefit. And the best way to do that is through as much transparency as we can. One of the committees we talked about in economic development is a communication one where we make an effort to engage everybody that we can in the conversation and let people know what's going on. That's one of the subcommittees. Kelly's telling me I'm done.
Mr. Wheeler, did you want to answer the question? Or were you giving up your time for your question?
With that, you want to answer the question?
Okay. All right. Who would like to be next?
Hi, Alicia Sesniak, Logan Daily News. We've spoken a lot tonight about incentivizing small businesses to move into Logan. Do we have any specific ideas that we could use to incentivize those businesses, like any specific examples?
So again, I guess is where I have to defer to him, but the one thing I did want to bring up, I thought about afterwards, I got cut off. So just in a general kind of context to give like some numbers. So one of the buildings downtown, so if you go down and you're kind of right across the street from the courthouse parking lot, there's a dark colored building that's on an alley, and it used to be, I think, the old Western Auto, a long time ago. Okay, so if you look at that building there, that building's for sale for, I think it's $200,000. All right, now, when I talked to my dad about bringing it up to code and getting it ready to go with the fire suppressor and all that stuff that needs to be in there, it would be somewhere around $800,000, okay? Now, you're gonna have the, whatever kind of business you're gonna put in there, you're gonna have that type of remodeling too. So let's just do a round number of say $1 million, right? So what small business person has that? What bank is going to loan that? And they haven't even sold the first product yet. And then what are they going to put in there? You're not really going to be able to use the top 2 floors unless you put an elevator in, so that's going to be another expense. But if you're just doing the bottom floor, so let's say you're selling hamburgers. How many hamburgers you're going to have to make? So we always say, yeah, we want to get businesses in town. How are we going to subsidize? But those are the numbers that people are looking at, which is part of the reason why downtown is sitting so empty as it is. So what can the Port Authority do to help out that? Because I'm sure there's plenty of people in this community who have great ideas. They don't have that kind of bankroll. And then to go into these buildings downtown, I mean, so do we have to start having the conversation of maybe it's time to take the building down because they're 3rd-story buildings and it's that much more expensive? I don't understand how come we have so many 3rd-story buildings. When you go to Nelsonville, they got 2-story buildings. I don't know why they make a discussion here, but it increases that cost. So just to kind of put a number into it, somebody's going to take a huge risk to open up a business that has no guarantee.
I tried.
Oh, I'm sorry. We
That's
got it.
fine.
So anyway.
Good stuff, Sean. To answer your question directly, do we have specific industries or businesses? No. But I will say that economic development is hard work. And the focus of the Economic Development Committee is to be laser focused on bringing businesses to the county. And the way you do that is, the way economic development works, there's a couple key parts. One is you've got to have good partnerships. We have to have a good partnership with an organization called Ohio Southeast. They're the economic development arm of the state. The second is a statewide organization called Jobs Ohio. We need to have positive, intentional relations with them. So, because what happens is they get the leads and they filter the leads down to specific areas. We need to make sure that when a lead comes, we're encouraging them to consider Hocking County as a potential location. So we got to be intentional about that. We've got to be aggressive at providing incentives for companies to come here. And I think one of you guys pointed out that why do we lose opportunities that are out there? Sometimes it's because we just don't work hard enough to do it. The purpose of the Economic Development Committee is to focus hard on, if there's an opportunity, we're going to go after it. The second part of the economic development is site ready. To have sites where if a business wants to come here and set up a business, that there is land, that there is infrastructure like power and maybe railroads, road access, gas. We've got to be ready when a company says, I want to build a site. I want to come to a market. We've got to be ready to say, we've got a 50-acre site. It's got all utilities. It's ready to go. Let's start business. And we don't have that site today. That's a focus economic, is be ready when that opportunity comes. That we're here to welcome them to Hocking County.
I think for revitalizing downtown, because the cost would be prohibitive for a small business in most cases. I mean, you'd have to be selling widgets that were really expensive and they'd have to be in high demand. So, I don't know what the commissioner's authority is on tax abatement, whether or not what your limits are, how far you can go. I mean, I have mixed feelings when it comes to tax abatement, but sometimes you gotta lure people in any way you can. And if it's a big enough project and it's gonna be a big enough gain for the community, then I can see where it would be worth it. I don't know that if you have somebody, small business, what you could do for them to maybe make it a little more financially viable for them to come to downtown. But that's, you make a good point, Sean, that we are, spending way too much money on something for little return. If the juice isn't worth the squeeze, the average entrepreneur, small business owner can't afford it. They're better off to build something somewhere else. And where we are now with real estate, even in town, is becoming out of reach for a lot of people.
Good. Can I just get a quick shout out to his father? He's looking at some innovative ways. Greg's looking at some innovative ways to address the cost of sprinklers, and so that is in the works.
And if I can, just to specifically go to a specific type of business, I don't know if you can, you want somebody to come in that's gonna have a sustainable business for the community, whether it's selling burgers or whether it's making widgets or whether it's, web design, as long as they're bringing in, so I don't know if you can, I mean, it was a great like, I never thought about the fact of having pre-ready land, which would be huge. So that would be one thing that would kind of be outside of the city, which would be a great thing to do, which would be obviously an investment for the county to do that. But to do that in the city, like, I don't think they could do that, but like, I wouldn't try to pigeonhole just this kind of company to come in.
All right, thank you. So we're going to take just a little brief break. If you need to use the restroom, this will give 10 minutes for those who are watching online to send in their questions. And when we return, we'll take a couple of questions from the live streamers and then come back to the audience. So 10 minutes.
Someone put the
Hello, everyone. Are you guys able to hear us? There's just comments. Thank you, guys. Anyone have questions? Just submit your questions.
Does anybody know? You did know. Oh, that is good. Oh, yes. Turn my sound
Yeah, I had
I know who you are.
all I can think about. What's up, buddy? How are you?
Good, buddy.
All right, if you're live, this is your last chance for questions. The ones who have sent in some ridiculous things, they're not going to be asked. But if you have a real question, at a time, thank you very
Hey, Bobby, I'm sending you one. Okay.
All right, we can get started again. So I did talk to the candidates during the break, and I think it might be beneficial, and they all agreed. We are going to have Commissioner Linton explain what a land bank is and a port authority. So if you wouldn't mind doing that.
Sorry. Land bank. So I'll start from the beginning. The land bank is made up, and this is based on Ohio Revised Code. They set the rules. We just follow them. There are 71 of the 88 counties in Ohio who currently have a land bank. And I attended, along with Blaine Davidson and Sean, attended the Ohio Land Bank Conference last week in Toledo. And let me tell you, there are some very, very successful land banks doing amazing things on behalf of the citizens. Amazing things. Number of houses built is staggering. So the land bank is made up of 2 commissioners. And by the way, that is not Drew Davidson. It is Jason D'Onofrio, myself, and the treasurer. This is by Ohio Revised Code, it's how it's set up. So the treasurer has to form the land bank, which Blaine Davidson did. Because of Drew and Blaine's relationship, obvious relationship, Jason and I are appointed that board, along with the mayor of the largest city, which is Rick Kronfelder, and one other appointee at large. And by the way, we have not filled that position, so if someone is listening, interested in that position, we're really looking for someone who has either real estate legal experience or just real estate experience who is interested in volunteering, and it's a volunteer position on the land bank board. The purpose of the land bank is to acquire blighted or significantly tax delinquent properties. It's not to steal properties, it's not to take properties from people, it's for people who have basically abandoned their properties or are so far delinquent in taxes that they'll never catch up. So that's the purpose, to acquire those properties, to repurpose those properties so that they can be either redeveloped or torn down and affordable housing built on those properties. The one that we formed here, we limited, it cannot be short-term rentals. It has to be a person buying and living in the house. No one on the board can purchase properties, and there's been a lot of noise out there that Blaine Davidson or Roger Shaw or Michael Linton, or I'm sure Drew, you're on that list sometimes too. Jason, are you on that list? I don't know. Are benefiting or will benefit from the land bank. We are specifically prohibited from purchasing those properties. Some people say, well, you can just form these entities and go around. Shame on us if we even think about that. Ethically, shame on us. Kick us out of office. Do whatever if we ever think about taking advantage of it. The purpose of it is to honestly take advantage of grants. We've gotten a significant grant over the last couple of months that's going to allow us to tear down the Winter Song Retirement Community in Lauraville. That cost is over $250,000 to tear it down because of abatement. But we could use land bank money from the state, no cost to the county, to tear that building down and allow us to repurpose, allow the village of Lauraville to repurpose that building, hopefully for affordable housing on the site of what is currently Wintersong Village and the adjacent property, which was previously owned by Logan Elm School District. So that's a nice site, could take 10 to 1,200 square foot homes. It'd be great to see that repurposed. So the purpose of a land bank is to take blighted or significantly tax delinquent properties, repurpose those, and provide affordable housing. And affordable housing, let me just point out, is not Section 8 housing. It's not subsidized housing. It just means it's affordable for the people who live and work in the community. And so that's the purpose of the land bank supplies up to. Because in order for the Port Authority to be successful and in order to bring new businesses in, we need people to be living here who can work in those businesses. So land bank and a Port Authority go hand in glove because if you have people who have places to live, you create opportunities for jobs, people can work in those jobs. Port Authority, transition to Port Authority. I'm waiting for my 3 minute. Good. No time.
Can I ask one question about the land bank though?
We'll go back to questions. Let me finish Port Authority. Port Authority could be, again, all designed by the Ohio Revised Code. It's not something we created, we thought of. It's written in Ohio Revised Code what a Port Authority can do and what they can't do. The Port Authority has 5 to 7 board members at the discretion of the county commissioners when it's set up. And again, today we have no one. We've not actually formed the Port Authority yet, and we have no one that we say we're going to ask to appoint them to the board. So if you know someone, or if you're interested in a role on the Port Authority board, please let us know because we want to talk to you. It's important to have people who want to see the Port Authority be successful on the board. So how Port Authority works is the Port Authority has some features that other organizations don't have. First of all, they're the designated economic development entity for the county, which means that when dollars come from the state or when leads come from the state about businesses who want to come here, we have to have an entity to accept those leads. The Port Authority will be that entity. So they will be assigned to when Jobs Ohio says, hey, there's somebody thinking about Hocking County, Port Authority would work with Ohio Southeast and Jobs Ohio to take advantage of that opportunity. So they're designated by the county. It also allows them to receive funds from federal and state grants, federal and state incentives to help incentivize businesses to come to the county. Another benefit of Port Authority, they have the opportunity, the option, they have to do it, but they can give sales tax abatements on the construction costs of a new building. So if an investor is coming to town and they're going to build a $20 million building, guess what? There's a lot of sales tax in that. They could say, we'll give you a 1 point off on the sales tax as an incentive. And as I said before, economic development is hard work. There's a lot of states, a lot of counties, who are vying for businesses to come. So sometimes you gotta be competitive, sometimes you gotta put money out, but the good news is you can put restrictions on it. You can say, we're gonna give you this incentive, but if you don't meet the employment obligations, you say you're gonna hire 100 people in the first 2 years, and you don't hire, there can be a clawback provision to take that money back from that entity that received the benefit. So one benefit is sales tax incentives on the construction material costs. The second is prevailing wage. If we build a building as a county or as a city or as a state, we have to pay prevailing wages. I know because my business is impacted by this. So let me just give you an example. For guys who are working on one job doing the exact same thing they're doing next week on a prevailing wage job, they get paid $35 an hour this week. They go to a prevailing wage job next week and they get paid $65 an hour. That's what prevailing wage is. And I'm not opposed to prevailing wage, but it costs a lot of money in the construction. And the reality is most of that doesn't benefit the locals because most construction employees come from Columbus to work. So we're not losing opportunities for our employees here, but we're saving significant in the building costs. The Port Authority has the ability to say this does not have to be a prevailing wage job. The county, any construction we do, it has to be prevailing wage. So another benefit of the Port Authority is to save on that. And let me just say too, the purpose of the Port Authority is to continue to recreate itself. So when the Port Authority earns income from incentives that are provided or for businesses to come in, that money is put back into the Port Authority to provide additional incentives for another company to come the next time. So it just continues to repeat itself and hopefully continues to provide opportunities to bring businesses to the county.
Thank you. I asked the candidates if they'd be okay with the commissioner to explain those. I think there was a couple of misconceptions, and then also talking to some audience members, they wanted some clarification. So we will go back to timed question and answers. One of the questions that was submitted online was, considering both environmental and economic factors, what do you believe is Hocking County's most sustainable industry, and how will you encourage its well-being?
What is its most sustainable, as in like sustainable fuel, sustainable
economic driver, basically.
I think it's very sustainable in terms of economic
Development.
not necessarily the environment.
Not green.
Not necessarily the environment.
We're talking about money green.
Right now, I mean, it's the tourists and the Airbnbs. I mean, that's it. I mean, that's, you know, we may not like it or some may not like it, but that's where we're at right now. So to make that sustainable, so it to continue to grow, so that there's a good, I know there's investors from outside that come here that they build, they're not invested in this community, they're not invested in this county. It's just purely profit for them. But also know that there's people who live here and they use it as part of their retirement. There has to be a happy medium between the two of those to be able to sustain both of them so they're both happy. But I have this feeling, and I don't have all the specifics, that it seems like a lot more outside influence, a lot more outside money is starting to push it to where the local, if you want to get into that industry, where it's hard for them to, you know, I think I mentioned my aunt and uncle, they already had land from years ago in Carbon Hill, and that's what they ended up, you know, doing. My uncle was a retired carpenter, so he could build his own. Not everybody has that, but that is a sustainable, you know, market that I see right now for us. So we need to lean into it, or just continue to keep fighting it. And I don't think we should fight it. I mean, it's what's been given to us right now. It'd be great if the old Goodyear building got filled back up with buildings again, and somebody came in and took over Smead. But that's going to be in the future. What we have right now is the tourists. And I think we should do, you know, what we can is going to be best for the locals here, the businesses that are coming in. They do, I think it was 1,600 jobs that they're creating right now. So they're not super high paying jobs, but they are jobs. So that would be my answer to that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we want to miss the opportunities that tourism provides. I just think we need to take full advantage of when they come here to make sure they're spending money in our county. provide better opportunities downtown, other opportunities around the county. I think we need to leverage that more than we have. And that's incumbent upon, I don't think that's a short-term rental owner's need. I think it's our responsibility as leaders in the community to drive the opportunities for people to spend money, provide incentives for people to spend money in our communities. Number one, but in terms of sustainable, the one thing I would say, people who are willing to invest are more likely to be sustainable. So if we can find land, develop that land, and someone's coming and willing to build a $20 million building, my guess is they're going to be around for a while. If they're going to put that kind of money into an investment, and we have an example of that called Stuart Glass. They put a lot of their family's money into this deal. They're continuing to put a lot of money into this deal, and I'm guessing Stuart's going to be around for a long time. And that provides a great opportunity for us to leverage, again, like I said before, if we can get vendors to them, they're supplying their product to make their product, or customers that take their glass and finish it for final use. It'd be nice to attract that, because a huge cost of solar glass is shipping. And the more that we can get it done here in Hocking County, it's a win-win for all. So I would say what's most sustainable, people who are willing to make an investment in the county, because likely they're going to continue to stay and employ people in our county.
As far as tourism, it's here. I mean, love it or hate it, it's going to be here. It's always going to be here. It's been here my whole life. It's just grown exponentially. I think that cabin owners get a lot of heat, but it's not so much on them, to provide money for the county. But we could be drawing from the guests that are visiting these cabins. I mean, we've got to find an alternative source of income. And there are things out there. I mean, I thought that I had all these brilliant ideas, and I talked to other people, and a lot of people share the same ideas. Okay, so if we all agree on it, then why can't we get it implemented? And it falls back to the state 99.9% of the time. We've got to figure out a way to get something legislated to benefit us. I mean, people think that the commissioners have a lot of power when you really don't have the power that public perception has of you. We answer to a higher body, the state of Ohio. They have the ORC, they make the rules. You have to follow them. As far as factories go, I think strip glass is going to be outstanding for our community. And if things go as what I've heard, the projections, they're going to grow. They're going to bring additional work because they're going to need supplies for their business. And hopefully they'll be able to utilize some of the empty factories we already have and make that happen.
Thank you. Another question that was submitted online was, do you think the county would be better served with corporations that provide more jobs and can force growth, or with entrepreneurs that create more of a sense of community?
Anybody who knows me, I'm always going to lean towards the entrepreneur. That's been me my whole life. I think even if you look at statistics across the U.S., I know Amazon and Walmart's the largest employer, but if you put small businesses together, it makes up a huge amount of the working population in the U.S. But to build off of what Mr. Linton said, when you have somebody who's going to invest basically their whole life, if any of you have ever tried to open up a business before, you're mortgaging your house, you're putting up all of your savings, you're putting everything, you are invested, as invested as you can be. I agree, you can get some outside people to come in with $20 million, but I would also say you have the ability to write $20 million, and if it starts to go, you also have to cut your losses and go. When you're leveraged as far as you are as a small business owner to have that much, everything, you got to figure out. So when you want to talk about investing in the community, I'm always going to lean towards a small business owner and an entrepreneur, because let's face it, in a small town, whether it's Logan or Laurelville or Murray City, I don't see any large corporation coming in and buying up downtown. So those are going to be your who's going to revitalize downtown, but just for me, to be honest with everybody, I'm always going to have a bend towards the small business.
If I can be greedy, I'm gonna say both, because, we certainly need to provide incentives, and those incentives in those organizations we just talked about are available to small companies just as they are to large companies. So we need to incentivize people to start businesses, to grow their business, and we need to incentivize people who want to bring an existing business to our community. So I would answer that to say emphatically, the job of economic development is to make sure that we provide 100% support for anyone who wants to stand up or start or bring a business, and do everything we can, not just to get them here, to help them get started, but to provide all the fiscal, economic, cultural support for them to be successful. That's our job as economic developers, and that's the role of the Port Authority. The Port Authority comes alongside. Their job is to get them here and do whatever they can do to help them be successful.
I agree both. I feel like we need big factories to provide hundreds of jobs, good paying jobs. We need to revitalize downtown. We need small businesses in there. Growing up, it was retail. It was, you bought your clothes there. You had Sears, JCPenney, the Five and Dime, Sharps, Elberfeld. That's where everybody shopped. And then somewhere in the 80s, the world became shopping malls, and they started building them out and about, and everything kind of, downtown has died everywhere. In the last couple of decades, there's been a huge movement to revitalize downtowns in a lot of these small towns. And so if you drive around Ohio, like Sean does, you'll see that like they've done amazing things. They're more boutique type, small personalized shops. It's not like the days of old where, things were hometown and everybody went, just before school, you went downtown, you ran into everybody you knew and bought your clothes and went home, went to the Five and Dime, bought your cheap candy when you were a kid. So I think that we're probably limited a little bit on the types of businesses that it would be viable for. And when we were talking earlier about cost prohibitive, they're not going to put a candy store downtown for $200,000 building, $300,000 in renovations. That's not, it's cost prohibitive. But I do believe that we should have support small business and encourage small business growth and to revitalize downtown and give them an excuse to go there. Even the local, everybody talks about the tourist place for us to go. I would be happy to patronize small shops downtown.
I apologize, this is super rude, but apparently there's an alarm going off at the chamber, so give me 1 second.
You're out of time.
I think we're talking while you're fixing the chamber.
As long as the other guys are okay with that.
Well, the chamber's burning down, we're gonna talk.
I got a question.
Two things. One, I just want to add on, entrepreneurs provide opportunities for local individuals to be successful. We certainly want to support that. But larger companies typically provide a bigger swing in employment in a faster pace. So that's why both are important. One is an entrepreneur, we want to provide opportunities for them to be successful individually and grow their business to have employees. But we also want to provide opportunities for employees in the short term. So the other thing I want to say about downtown development, we have convened a meeting in May that will include Chillicothe, Lancaster, Circleville, and Logan downtown leaders to talk about what are the challenges, what are the opportunities, what makes it hard to be successful downtown. If you've been to Chillicothe and Lancaster, very nice, very active downtowns. And so we want to kind of leverage off them to see how they got through, because they had the same issues. They had sprinkler issues and all kinds of issues in development. So we're hoping that we can sponge off of those cities who have been successful.
Great, thank you. We will return to audience questions. Sarah McGreen, you were first, raise your hand.
Thank you.
We've heard a lot on economic development. I wanted to ask a question about the biggest small business in the area. So there's some land use ordinances being proposed or land use restrictions. I have that right? What is your position on grandfathering, considering that, there's a history in the country of no laws ex post facto and that kind of thing that, you don't want to set a law that essentially negatively impacts things that existed before. So in terms of the land use restrictions affecting small businesses, how do you stand on grandfathering?
I would have to ask for a little bit more specifics than just kind of the general,
The county's proposing land or use.
I think to clarify, so,
Yeah.
and I was just gonna say, to clarify in the case of short-term rental, regulations, what is your stance on grandfathering in existing, businesses that are already there?
I'm gonna be honest, it's not something I specifically have thought about, but I think it would have to be something that have to be a conversation. I mean, if you're going to, you have people who have invested maybe for their retirement, or you've had somebody come in, and these are how the laws were, and all of a sudden you're gonna come in and change something, and you're gonna make them, whatever, have to knock down structures, that's a whole different. So it would be a conversation we'd have to have, that would be on a specific type of basis, depending upon what type of laws or zoning or restrictions that you put in. So that would be kind of a specific thing there, but I wouldn't be opposed to grandfathering, as long as it was going to specifically, like if we pass this, this is going to cause this problem here specifically, and we need to address it. But I think there needs to be a communication that's back and forth between the county, the city, Airbnb owners, whether they're local, whether they're there has to be something set up this way, because there just seems to be a lot of tension in between. I mean, I know there's tensions with ones that are in the city. There's tension because you don't have them in certain places and people's open them up and it's not supposed to be there. There's some tensions for people that are, building these monstrosity ones. So there is this, but again, I'm going to keep beating the same drum. Like, we've all been placed here together. Let's try to figure this out together. Like, we were placed here for a purpose. Let's figure this out as a community together, instead of just lobbing comments on 30 seconds. Instead of lobbing comments on Facebook or anything like that, let's come together as a community and figure out what's going to be best for the community, also for the industries, also for, everybody. But again, I'm not going to get everything I want. You're not going to get everything you want. We have to come to an agreement, though. What's best for the community.
Thanks, Sean. I think you're wrong. Not.
No, I'm good. Sorry.
Okay, sorry.
He already cut you off.
You're done. When you say land use, it's really not land use, because that would be more of the zoning, specifically about the regulations connected to the short-term rentals, right? That's really what you're asking about, correct? Okay, so first of all, I have a business, so I do not want to suggest that any government, and I'm a small government guy, just want to clarify, I'm a small government guy. I don't want to suggest that the government should do anything to infringe on the rights of a private owner to do what they want to do. Having said that, I think we have a responsibility to the people who visit our county to make sure that when they stay here, they are safe. And in my mind, that is an important topic that, and there is, as you know, there's a variance process. That if there's a disagreement about safety, that there's a variance application people can go through. I personally do not want anyone who's operating a short-term rental to go out of business, period. I'll say that, I do not want anybody. At the same time, I also don't want to violate national fire codes to have someone in a precarious position that could lead to death or serious injury. So, to ask the question about grandfathering, I think there are things that could be considered for grandfathering, but I don't think safety should be one of those.
Who does that liability fall back on?
It'll fall back on the owner of the property.
Because if it becomes regulated and we are regulated up to code, and then something happens, then can it come back on whoever I mean, right now, I guess when you guys are wanting to regulate things but yet you're not even in charge of it.
All right, that's enough. You can continue, Mr. Wheeler.
So as far as the short-term rentals and the grandfathering in, I would be, unless for some reason that there was something structurally unsafe or there was a history of unsafe events at that property, that they would grandfather in. They've been operating business, say 20 years, flawlessly, no issues. It would be wrong for the government to step in and try and tell them to alter their life and their finances because we want to change the rules a little bit. And again, it goes back to I'm not a big fan of zoning, but I do feel strongly about public safety. I think that there should be access to these places. The driveway should support an ambulance. A fire truck should be able to get close. Law enforcement should be able to get there. It's kind of a dirty little secret that nothing happens in the cabins here, which is a lie, because we have a lot of things occur at the cabins in our county. It's just not advertised. It wouldn't look good for business. And as far as if you establish something, this is how it's going to be from here on out. If you're building a new structure, then you follow these laws. I believe that the owners of these things, they have to be insured. And insurance companies that I've dealt with in business are pretty stringent on things. And if you don't follow the line, they don't insure you. So a lot of that should be self-regulated. That should be between the cabin owner and their insurance company. I think that requiring that they show proof of that insurance to a certain liability is probably not a bad thing.
And I think, can I say something in regards to it? We'll elaborate on what you're saying there.
You can come up and ask some questions.
I just wanted to elaborate on what the gentleman was saying, that basically, I know of 2 cabins that are here in Hocking County. One's 14,000 square foot, and one's 10,000 square foot. And if you guys go in and say, hey, and this was architecturally designed to not have a system in there, because at the time there was no fire suppression system for it.
So there was time at 5 o'clock to talk to the candidates individually and ask specifics for people who are currently in office. Right now, questions are limited to all 3 candidates. I don't believe that is something that the other 2 can answer because they're not in office currently. Who would like to ask the next question? No one? Oh. Come on down.
I don't know how much my question applies to all of you, but why aren't the revised codes and clean up Hocking County being followed?
You said in the mic, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
I don't know if it applies to all of you, but why aren't the revised codes and clean up Hocking County being followed?
That wouldn't apply to all 3 candidates either.
What was the question?
Revised code, why isn't it being followed for cleanup Hocking County?
Yep.
So,
I don't know how to answer because I don't know where you're saying it's not.
yeah,
What do you?
Maybe after-
Specifics that you have?
So certain places in the county, a lot of the county is heavy tourism. There's a lot of scenic trails, but a lot of those trails, if you walk them, there's a lot of just trash and just not proper maintenance on them.
Well, that really, the parks don't fall underneath the county, they fall underneath the state. That's the High Department of Natural Resources. They're responsible for policing anything that happens in the park. In fact, we're not even allowed to go there. Don't tell them that, but just.
thank you. Any other questions?
I guess I'll ask some.
Okay.
I'm new to the Port Authority stuff. I'm still learning too, but how close is
Please make sure that your question pertains to all 3 candidates.
Okay, the Port Authority, is it similar to CIC stuff? How will that intertwine if we got a CIC and a Port Authority? Do you guys work together?
That really wouldn't pertain to all three.
Let these two guys answer.
Would,
I'll answer.
okay.
Well, I'm just saying, if we have a CIC, I didn't know why we would need a port authority as
Well, I mean,
well.
yeah, I'm fine with the answer, because it'd be a question, because I think the CIC went private recently, so that would be another thing, but, yeah, I mean, I don't,
Yeah, CIC made a decision in November to become a private entity, and which means that they can no longer be the designated economic development entity for the county. So we need to have one, and so the Port Authority accomplishes that objective. In addition, and I've tried to stress this, is that the Port Authority can do some things that CIC can't do. Some of the things that I mentioned earlier. So hopefully we can work hand in glove, we can work together. I'm hoping that the chamber and the CIC and the Port Authority can work together, in addition to townships and other folks, commissioners, can drive whatever it takes.
What about
Hopefully,
tourism?
The Economic Development Committee is to think about how we can collaborate more effectively in the common goal of driving economic development.
can I ask a question?
So just, you gonna answer your own question as well? I'm part of the county too. Okay, so with the Port Authority, I understand how CIC makes its money. I understood how it would work. So, and I think all of this is, like, everything you read off is great, but just for me, like, what's the specifics of how a Port Authority makes its own money? I understand we have to kind of give it a boost, but then how does it, if you could be specific on that?
Yeah.
I don't know if the rest of you wanted that.
That's a good question. Well, just to point out, the CIC makes its money, they're a property manager. They manage, I think, 5 properties, don't quote me on that, 4 or 5, but they own and manage 5 properties. So their income comes from rental of those properties. Port Authority income comes from incentives that are given to the county from the state and federal government. So incentives that are given to us, some of those are given to a potential employer to come in. We can also earn income from those companies when they come in. We can take a percentage of blah, 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 whatever it might be. So it becomes self-supporting. The Port Authority is not intended to be a drain, will not be a drain on the county budget.
So the CIC was able to, because they also give loans out, so people pay back those loans, so they get interest on that, so it's another way.
Port Authority can do that as well.
So, but the Port Authority will be more taxpayer funded from the state, from the federal government, than what the CIC is.
And businesses who choose.
Okay.
Question also. So I've been reading up on the Port Authority. I'm by no means an expert yet. But one of the things that I did read was troubling to me, that they have the ability to levy a 0.5 mil property tax without any voter input. And would that be something that we would try to pull here, or?
I would say absolutely not. Basically, I know, it's not a setup. Yeah, I absolutely not. I mean, we are very aware of the issue of property taxes, very aware. So we reduced our inside millage. There's no intent. The Port Authority will be self-sustaining. No intent to levy. The objective is to get money that we all pay in taxes to the state and federal government, and to bring some back to where it belongs in our county.
I have 2 more little questions here. One's the land bank, because I know we're all new to this land bank, all these port authorities and economic development and regulation zoning and all this stuff's going on a lot. But the land bank, how do you accumulate that? I know it's been said that it's like last minute, the land bank gets it only by after share sales and all that goes through the process, correct?
Not only, but that's one of them.
That's how I thought it was. Now, I heard that the land bank can technically probably get grant money and apply for these properties in Hocking County that some of us may want to buy, but we can go out and have grant money to compete with the land bank.
From my understanding, that if the land bank is taking a property because it's.
No, I mean, if I want to buy your property, that they're taking your property.
You would have the opportunity to share sale of life.
At the sheriff's sale, but The sheriff's sale, is it an auction type thing?
The land bank isn't competing you at a sheriff's sale.
So the land bank can't buy it before the sheriff auction?
After the sheriff's sale.
They have to buy it after the sheriff's sale? Okay, I wasn't
Yeah,
sure
that's fair.
if it was after the sheriff's sale or if they could buy before sheriff's sales where the public don't even have an opportunity to buy.
It's after the sheriff's sale.
That's
When
good.
we can take the property, when we can acquire the property. Another benefit of the land bank, I didn't mention this, is, sorry, another benefit of the land bank is that, let's say that Sean here is delinquent on his taxes and has decided that, well, you're giving me. All right, let's do Kelly. Kelly's easy. Kelly. So Kelly is really delinquent on his taxes and he just chooses to move out and move on. Leaves the city, moves away, has no intention of ever paying it. But he's accumulated $30,000 of unpaid taxes. So a couple things happen is when the land bank gets that property, it's off of his back. He doesn't have to pay that tax back because the land bank will take advantage of that property, put it back on the tax rolls, and the benefit to the county is we can then bring it back onto the tax roll. So, people say that the land bank is taking property. Actually, from one perspective, you could say that it acts in a way to help take the pressure off those folks who just have given up on the ability to pay the property taxes. So that's kind of an unknown benefit. And again, that's not the goal. The goal is that people don't pay the property taxes. But if there's no opportunity for that to happen, Wintersong had almost $90,000 of back taxes. No one is ever going to pay those taxes. We had a hard time finding even one owner connected to that building. Those taxes are never paid. Those taxes are forgiven. The way the land bank makes money, and therefore we don't need to make money on profitable sales, is we get delinquent taxes that the treasurer collects. It goes in to support the land bank activities.
But to clarify what he just said, I want to make sure okay, so the county takes the property, it goes into a sheriff's sale.
The county is not taking the property. The county is processing it through a sheriff's sale. If it doesn't sell at the sheriff's sale, the land bank.
That is what I'm, if it didn't sell.
Okay. I got one more on another topic, and that was back to the regulation and zoning and all that stuff. I know in the past, Hocking County has had zoning on the ballot, and we've always denied it. So now we're going a roundabout way to zone and regulate countywide, which now got shrunk down to STRs. There's a lot of stuff there when you talk about blight, and I know this is a whole other topic, so we're not going to get into it, but there's a lot of stuff there that is very up in the air on what is blight. You said earlier about getting rid of all the blight and stuff. That's what's blight to you might not be to me. So and I know these proposed regulations have not went into effect yet, but when they do, is that board still going to be there, the regulation board that we have now, or does it go right into the county hands and the three commissioners vote from here on out? So say you guys start these regulations with the STRs and next year you're like, we want to change some things. Does it just go to you guys to be able to vote those three things through, or does the public and a board have to vote more regulations? If we approve one thing, is it going to grow?
What's the amendment process? To the regulations, is that what you're trying to ask?
Yeah, I'm asking if we say, okay, we'll let you put these little bit of regulations on STRs, and then next year you're going to add more regulations. It's just the way it is. When you start it just piles on. Who allows that? Who says it's okay to regulate more? Is it the board? Because right now we're going through the board. We're having all these meetings with the zoning board. We got 6 members. You guys hired an outside contractor and just to do all this stuff. But once those are set in place, how does it change after that? Who says it's okay to change that platform when you got it there, the regulations? And permit fees, there's gonna be permits, $50. Who says it's okay to go to 100?
Yeah, those are good questions, and I just want to distinguish, the blighted is land bank, so that's not related to short-term rentals regulations, so just want to make sure.
Well, I just thought you had to put a fence up. One of the things was if I have a short-term rental, I got to put a fence up so my neighbor so it looks pretty for my neighbor.
Okay. But in terms of the regulations have to be approved by the commissioners. Any changes to those regulations, whether reduction or additions, would have to be approved by the commissioners in the future.
But would it be open to the public, or is it just something you three talk about and just?
Well, I feel pretty strongly that we will hear, and we've already committed that the zoning commission has turned over their proposed regulations. And oh, by the way, it's not just short-term rentals. There's other things too. There's a noise ordinance. There's several different ordinances that are out there or regulations are being proposed. So they've been turned over to the commissioners. At least 3 of the 5 have been turned over to the commissioners. It's up to us then to decide. And I am confident that we will not make a decision until we feel like everybody's had a chance to chime in. And there has been, some people say that we're making these, or the zoning commission, even before the commissioners became involved, that we were making this in a vacuum. I know that there were at least 8 public meetings that anybody was invited to comment. So there has been a hearing, and I would expect we will continue to listen, not just now in the initial regulations, but in the future. I would expect, whether I'm a commissioner or these guys are commissioners or anybody else commissioner, we're going to listen to see what the public sentiment is for reduced or increased.
Well, that's all. I just want to make a statement now and then I'll sit down. I just hope whoever gets voted in does listen to the people. If we say we don't want regulated, if we say we don't want that, then don't do it. That's your job. Doesn't matter. We're the boss. So that's the way it needs to be. If you get voted in, you need to listen to us and not, pound things down our throat. Just like on these meetings you're talking about, you said all these people approve these regulations, but the one thing that wasn't on there was the opportunity to say, I don't want nothing. Because that's what I would have checked. I even asked when I was there, is there an opportunity to say, I don't want nothing? Because you had to pick something. So when you pick something, it looks like you picked something.
I beg to differ. You could have picked nothing. But
I did pick nothing. That's what I mean. I didn't sign nothing. So I didn't have a chalk on that.
Sit down. So the only thing that I would. We're gonna do closing statements now, so you have 2 minutes for your closing statements. Okay, so the only question I would have on zoning, I understand it is a touchy subject, but I would ask, and I'd like to talk to you afterwards, Clayton, right? To just be able to say, okay, if someone moves in beside your property and they are doing something that is irritating you to death, what can we do to prevent that? Like that would be, so don't answer now, I want to talk to you afterwards, but for anybody who has those type of zoning rules, like for me, I don't want a strip club opening up beside me. I don't, okay? Maybe somebody doesn't want a casino. I mean, we have amusement park people who are looking at property out by the caves. I mean, there's like, is everybody okay with this? If we just say like, it's my property, I do whatever I want, which means when someone moves in beside you, they can do whatever they want to. If it just irritates you to no end, you have nothing to say. So there has to be some type of happy medium between the two.
I like that conversation. That's for sure.
Thanks, Sean. I just want to, again, this is the part I don't like about, but I just want to share a couple of things that I've helped participate in since being a commissioner. I'd like to be able to continue those. Obviously, you heard about Land Bank and Port Authority enough. I'm not going to talk about that, but we did last year get through for the full year an increase in the sheriff's deputies' compensation because they were significantly underpaid compared to the market. We did the same on the EMS department. We passed that to provide additional income. Why? Because we couldn't recruit new people and we were losing existing people. So we did the commissioners made decisions to provide opportunities for those 2 folks to earn more money. And I'm a fiscal conservative. I don't like paying anybody any more money than they need to, but we needed to in those 2 scenarios. The other thing that we started, and I think will be helpful long-term, is a quarterly leadership conversation where we bring the elected officials and department heads together on a quarterly basis. And we talk about what's going on, how can we communicate better, how can we work more effectively together to serve the community that we live and work in. I talked about zero-based budgeting before. I want to continue to drive that for all departments because I think we can provide the services that the county deserves at a more efficient price than we do it now using zero-based budgeting. I hope we can continue to drive that. We've looked at several areas where we spend too much money on stuff that we buy, and we've already driven some of those costs down by just looking at collaborative purchasing around the county. looking for the sign. We did purchase the Tansky building, and I know there's been noise about that, but to me, that was a good investment because when we get that building rehabbed, the JFS will have a long-term 30-year lease. That's guaranteed income for the county. So the county will be paying ourselves instead of paying a third party. In addition, we're going to, those 3 parking lots that sit around it will significantly enhance the opportunity for people to live and work downtown and visit downtown because the parking lots, I have others, but I think he's going to tell me I'm out of time.
I don't think that a lot of people know what zero-based budgeting is. For those that don't understand, as many of you may or may not know, when a department receives a budget and they fill out their budget request, in the past, it has always been spend it all or you won't get it next year. So you spend it all and then you add more in hopes of getting additional spending. With the zero-based budget, we're going to pay for whatever you need. And then if you need more on top of that, then we'll add that income into your budget without giving the money up front. So that kind of discourages the old school of thought is if I don't use it, I lose it. And having worked at a number of departments where I was involved in budgeting, that was the mindset. It's like, we got to spend this money. You know, you get to the end of the year, you got overflow, you're spending it. And to me, it was always wasteful spending. But if you didn't, then you got less money the next year. Maybe the less money wasn't going to be enough for your operating costs. So on that, in my closing statement, I want people to reach out to me. If you have questions for me, if you have concerns, whether or not I'm elected, before the election, however it is, even after, if I'm elected, I will be available to listen because I believe the input from anybody and everybody is important. I don't care if you're the janitor, I don't care if you're the president, your opinion matters, it is important. You're going to get good information from everybody. We all come from different walks of life and our path is different. So you may perceive something in a different way than I perceive it, that they perceive it, and I want to hear your opinions.
All right, thank you. So this concludes our event for this evening. Thank you to the candidates for participating. Thank you to the volunteers, and thank you for everyone that attended today, as well as those who watched online. Lastly, thank you to Logan Hocking School District for letting us use their auditorium and equipment.
And we should say thanks to the chamber, Bob. Great accomplishment.
Thank you.